The Illinois Women Religious Against Human Trafficking is a collective group of women religious and associates committed to being vibrant catalysts to awaken others to the evils of human trafficking, in order to create together a world where all persons are respected and valued. This collective is based on the belief in the God-given dignity of all persons. Inspired by the Trafficking Victims Protection Act of 2013, the group's mission is to prevent and protect women, men, and children from sexual and labor exploitation, as well as to advocate for the prosecution of the perpetrators. You will now hear from the representatives of the group who will share their personal stories and why they are passionate about this particular ministry. Our hope is that you are encouraged to join in the fight against human trafficking and advocate for those in your local area affected by this heinous crime.
In 2009, the Illinois Women Religious Against Human Trafficking was founded. It doesn't seem that 10 years had passed, but it has. And let me just say how I got into this. At a human trafficking conference 8 years prior to the formation of this committee, my passion about this topic was piqued. I saw a movie where a little girl was taken, sold to traffickers, and put into prostitution. She was about 5 years old. When the lights finally came on in the room, I turned to the person next to me and I said, I have to do something about this crime. And so, from that time forward then, I left all the other justice issues go on the side, and I began learning about human trafficking, going to conferences and meetings. However, one person alone cannot do the task.
The issue of human trafficking, while I understood the global kind of concept of it, I had no idea it even impacted local people. That was the shock to me, to learn that it happens next door. I did not know about the Illinois Women Religious Against Human Trafficking. I was aware of the issue of human trafficking internationally, but not locally. And I was made aware of this organization, and I went and offered to be a member of the group.
The leadership meetings I had gone to, they were beginning to talk a lot about human trafficking. And of course, it's at the very core of caring about the dignity of each person. And so I thought, I want to find out what this is. I find that there's a lot of justice issues I care a lot about, but I think the opportunity to express it and to be working with people, it's the very core of how we treat one another.
You know, for us as Holy Spirit missionary sisters, we are very involved with women and children since the beginning of our congregation, which is over 130 years old now. And we were really founded because of women, because the priests couldn't go in where we could go in. And so we started, and since the beginning, we have been involved with women. And when we realized this human form of slavery and modern slavery, we really felt we needed to become involved in it.
Trafficking has victims who are from small children to adults. Trafficking starts with a lie all the time. Most often people who are subject to trafficking are coming out of a situation where their home life or their reality is poverty or need. The implications for the person involved loses all sense of control over life, loses independence, loses self-esteem, loses the power to enjoy work because it's forced on them.
The mission statement in my community calls us to free the oppressed. And our constitutions say we are called to minister by the power of the word, particularly to those who are experiencing oppression. Now, while I don't ordinarily deal directly with those who are experiencing being trafficked, I do work on the committee that will help people who do that.
Because I think there's a lot of denial, like there are of other issues, that that's something that happens in Asia or Africa or some other country, but it doesn't happen here. You know, we have sexual abuse, we have prostitution, but you don't put those things together in terms of young women or boys being violated or sold into some kind of service, sexual service to somebody else, and that's more common than we ever want to believe.
I think, first of all, don't think it happens everywhere else. It happens in your neighborhood, happens in your city, it happens where you are. So not to be blind to the fact that this happens where we are. I think we can advocate by when people say things like, well, it's not happening, or we read articles in the newspaper, to stand up against what isn't truth.
Kids in school traffic one another. That's the hardest thing to understand, because what they do is a trafficker lures one of the students that's going to be vulnerable to say, yeah, I'll do that. Do you want a job? I got a job for you. Just help me out with this. And then they get paid. So they get clothing and jewelry and all the rest. And then the next thing is, does someone else know they want a job? So they get the next person with the same idea, and then eventually they get them, and they become the traffickers, and sometimes they become the victims.
The sisters on the committee were all teachers. That was not my experience, but it was theirs. And they thought, you know, it'd be better to bring awareness to the young people. Older people, maybe not so much, but here's this whole field of possibility. So, having made that transition, we used a program that we used for the adults when we built off of that. And although I've only been able to participate in one presentation to a high school, as I'm listening to it, I'm thinking, but these are potential victims. And as a grandmother myself, I must say, children are just, don't get treated that way. They just don't, and if they do, then they have to be saved.
Our mission is threefold: prevent, protect, and prosecute. To prevent human trafficking, we raise awareness of this topic to all age groups, organizations, interfaith groups, all over, churches, schools, universities, etc. When we talk about protection of those who are trafficking, we assist survivors at times with small amounts of money, because we're not funded as such. We give them small amounts of money or might respond to their need. The third way is prosecute, which we don't do because none of us are lawyers. But we are about advocacy, supporting legislation on human trafficking at the state level and the national levels.
I just think that being on this committee is a very challenging call, and as I listen to the reports, I have an incentive to continue. As long as I feel that I can contribute something, I'm going to continue as a member if they could use me, because I'm convinced that working together to combat human trafficking is the only way to end it.
I would like to see more people become involved. I know I don't contribute a heck of a lot. I don't know exactly what it is I do that could help, but I am very sure that there are the people out there who do have answers and who can make a difference, who would be wonderful, wonderful additions to our committee or any committee, any program that is working against human trafficking.
We could use people to support us in our endeavors of mission. First, in one way, by educating or working with us in that avenue. People can also just join the committee and see where they fit in. That's another avenue. Maybe you won't support us, don't want to come to a meeting or be on a committee, but you can support us in different ways. You can work even with advocacy. Maybe you're the person that'll go out with the banner or the placard or go to those issues and speak up for human trafficking, of changing laws for them.
We can make a difference if we work together. And it needs a lot of us to do that. So this is what we are trying to reach out to others to do it. We have a Facebook, and we also have a website. So in this way, if you are interested in any advocating or learning more, these are a couple of ways you can do it. I just would invite everyone to do what they can to help to stop this modern day slavery. And I think there's many ways we can do it. If you have some contribution you want to make, the Illinois Women Religious Against Human Trafficking will gladly welcomes your contribution in terms of service or whatever you can give, because each has their own gifts to give. So I think this is another way in which, and to keep them in mind, and keep people in mind. This is why we are here, because together we make a difference.